Hey, welcome back to the PCC podcast. We're here for another Coach's Corner. Today, we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic that might make you uncomfortable. I think it will, because a lot of us don't like to hear this and we like to do more, more, more. But as you can see from the title, we're going to talk about why less is more for your fat loss, for, quality of life, but really for your results, and how you don't need to earn your results by burning yourself into the ground, burning the candle at both ends and being exhausted, especially for our high achieving women who are super type A and go, go, go. And I know we resonate to a high degree with that. And that's why we coach those women. So let's kind of start with let's get personal first, right? Like, what's a time in our journey where we were doing all the more workouts, the restriction, the stress, and it actually backfired on your progress?
Yeah, I think we all can relate to this one is like being in the competition, bodybuilding world, right?
Mm.
My last season, I remember specifically, I was doing 3 shows in a row. And on my final week going into my last show after, 6 months of cardio every day, twice a day sometimes, working out every single day, getting 12 to 15,000 steps every day, dieting on low calories, right? You are burning your body into the ground. And I remember being like, my body's not progressing, I'm not dropping any more weight. I was irritable, I was tired, and as you guys would have guessed it, I didn't poop for 9 days. So guess who ended up in the emergency room for constipation again? This girl. So just like looking back, my acne, my bloating, my digestion, my energy, my sleep, like was shit. Literally can't even put it into a better term than that. So looking back, as soon as I started pulling back on doing all the things was when my body finally started to progress better.
Yeah, I very much relate on the bodybuilding front of things. Similar story there with when I was flying and as a flight attendant, I was lifting 6 days a week and laying over all across the world and would walk to wherever the hotel was because I wanted to get to a real, or walk to the gym, excuse me, and wanted to get to a real good gym, because I had to make sure had the best equipment. Lifting 6 days a week, cardio every single day, food is extremely low, sleeping in different time zones multiple times a week, just it was awful. And I was completely burnt out, getting no sleep ever. Just go, 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 go. Also online coaching. And I was experiencing so much burnout. And then, like you said, I was irritable. I had acne. I was extremely bloated. I was experiencing stalling and weight loss. And once I finally decided on my own, I need a day where I can just get some sleep. I can catch up. I don't need to worry about hitting 15,000 steps. I just need to breathe for a day. I dropped 3-4 pounds, 3.5 pounds, I think it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like a new woman. Maybe I need to do this more often. And that's the kind of touch on the bodybuilding side of things, but have experienced it outside of that as well. I think it's so, so common for us to feel like we have to be on all the time in all aspects of our lives, especially as driven women who want to work hard and be great at everything that we're doing and have that kind of like perfectionist mindset. When you pull back on things, sometimes it can feel like, ooh, am I failing here? Am I letting myself down? But no, oftentimes when we actually allow ourselves to do that is when we can progress forward the most.
Yeah. Well, since you guys both did bodybuilding examples, I'll use one that's a little less physical for the sake of the person that like maybe isn't living a super active lifestyle, but they're still like go, go, go all the time. So like, and you guys have heard this story a million times, but like last year was just like a lot of accumulation. Like I'll say my entire life, I've never slowed down, but in the past year specifically, the culmination of like growing and scaling a business, and then basically my worst fear coming true, like a bunch of turnover within the business, like having to basically like start from ground zero. I was living, and it wasn't that like things were actually crumbling down. Like we survived, we're obviously here and we're way better for it. But in the time, I was living under this cloud of like, the mental load of it's all crashing down, or like my worst fear is coming true, or like how am I going to get out of this, and constantly worrying and worrying and worrying. And so it was a lot of like mental stress load, because if you looked at my life from the outside in, like it wouldn't necessarily look terrible. I wasn't working 12-hour days at the time. Like it was a lot, but visually it wasn't anything extreme, but internally it was. And so that's where it's like a lot of perceived stress can also do the same thing of like I was still trying to hold myself to the same standards that I always was, with waking up at a certain time, working for this long, working out 5 days a week. At the time, I was pursuing CrossFit and trying to get better at that. Also trying to probably be in a deficit for God knows what reason. And all of the stressors of like more, more, more. Be top 1% at everything that you do, because that's who you are. And it was really that like, and you know, it's great that it's our culture here now, but like the idea of delegating more, pulling back in work, taking my training from 5 or 6 days a week to 3 right now, and that's like never done that before, unheard of. Just focusing on walking, taking breaks throughout the day. Like there's not just a there's not just a physical component to pulling back, but it's like dealing with the mental resistance of, like you said, like, am I a failure, or like guilt? Like, I'm a business owner. Who am I to take time off? I should be working the most from the start of the day to the end of the day. Like, no one should work harder than me. Like, that was the mentality that I had like gripped onto for so long. But at the end of the day, I was like, lab work showed I was burnt out. So like something was not right. And it doesn't mean that it's forever, but like being able to shift to that temporarily has helped actually get my performance back up. I'm able to show up sharper. And I have also been able to kind of like stop having sugar cravings and lose some body fat along the way. And I haven't really been trying to. So that's kind of my side of, with the perceived stress, what pulling back on that could do too.
Yeah, and that's usually, that mindset is something that I think we can all relate to, and a lot of our clients can relate to, is if you're not 100% perfect every single day, then you're not going to make the progress. Or if you're not 100% on every day, you're not going to be successful. And that's, something is, we're not here to be perfect, right? Mm-hmm. I think this is a conversation we've had a lot recently with clients, is like, we're not looking for you to be perfect, right? We're just looking for you to, each day give your best that day. And if that specific day you can only do 50%, you rest from your workouts, you don't get your steps in, like that is productive, right? In the long term. So
yeah.
So why do you think that is? Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just going to tally off that. I think that reminded me of that example with, if you had 10 empty cups, and empty is you're giving 0%, full is you're giving 100. We aren't looking for all the cups to be full. In all reality, there might only be, of 10, 2 to 3 that are full. But if you have some that are at 50%, you might have an empty cup. Heck, but if you can over time learn to start filling those cups up a little bit more and ensure that, like Julia said, you're giving it your best that day, your best is your 100% for that day. So making sure that we're focusing on that and not looking for 100% full cups across the board, because that's not realistic or sustainable in the long term.
Yeah. I love that analogy. You said that on your intro podcast too. And I just reminded me, I'm going to like go buy some plastic cups and some food coloring, and I'm going to go make a reel with that. But why do you guys think that is though? Like, why are we so programmed for like more? Why do we have this awful relationship with rest and recovery, or doing less?
That's a good question. I think I've always been that way until I untrained my brain. I think it was, rest growing up was like, why are you laying on the couch? Like, why are you being lazy? Why are you being unproductive? When in reality, like, sometimes that is the most productive thing you can do, is just rest, right? Especially when you are trying to progress physically or progress mentally. Running yourself to the ground is not going to push you more forward. But why I think that we as women are like that, I just look around you. I think it's more common than not. So even though it's not normal, or even though it's not, healthy for us, I feel as though it's more common than not.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's kind of a hardwired thing for sure in a lot of women, but I also think today's day and age, social media doesn't help that with
Yeah.
you get on social media and you see all these reels of, I did this and I made however much today. All you need to do is this. And it's almost this constant guilt of, well, if I'm not doing more, I need to have a side hustle. I need to do this. I need to do this. Look at this person who's running marathons and lifting weights and owning a business, and just it kind of puts that guilt on you of, well, I should be doing more. But like Julia said, like you both said, in all reality, sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is honor our body and actually relax. And learning to relax, I can say, was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's still a work in progress some days. I'm like, when there gets to be too much on my plate, I have to really lean back into the basics and be like, okay, my sleep routine, read my book, have a slow morning, like take some deep breaths, slow down while you're eating. It's the little things that we can stray away from and feel like we need to be doing more, when in all reality, the best thing we can do is remove some things from our plate, pull back some of the stress, and then you're actually going to start feeling better and seeing more progress.
It is so uncomfortable to do nothing. That was a huge topic. I am a therapist, and one of the biggest things was like, what do you do after work? And I was like, well, I usually do X, Y, and Z, and then I do X, Y, and Z. And she was like, why? And I was like, because I feel like I need to get something done. And she was like, you need to sloth, right, on the couch, or sloth in your bed, or go for a walk, and just be okay with just, even if you're not doing anything, like, don't pick up your phone, like, don't turn on the TV. Literally just be. It is so uncomfortable. But slowly, unraveling those wires of our brain that feel the need to, be a perfectionist and feel the need to be go, 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 right, is going to, in turn, be more sustainable for you, for your mental health, for your progress, so that we can improve each day. But no, I will say, like, firsthand, it is very uncomfortable to slow down.
I can't remember for the life of me where I saw this. I'm trying to remember where I watched this, but maybe it was a podcast, but someone was talking about the like 1 hour wall test, where it's like you basically, the test is sit in front of a wall, a blank wall, and stare at it for an hour. And like it's a really like triggering thing for a lot of people because we're so conditioned. I was talking to I did another podcast earlier today, and I was talking about how people are scared to listen to their own thoughts and like be with that without distractions, because we're so like we're a dopaminergic society. Like we need that hit all the time. And so some people can like sit through it and it's really uncomfortable, but like they get through it. Other people just like will start bawling and crying or talking to themselves. Like I'm actually kind of curious to try it, but it's like learning how to be still. Like we are not like social media wise, the dopamine hit wise, cultural programming, like just trying to be productive all the time. Like you guys said, like I think there's so much that plays into it, but yeah, let me know if you guys ever try that.
Yeah, that's a wild one. I would be interested to see how we all responded to that. But no, I couldn't agree more. I think that we are all just, it's the dopamine hits. We're always looking for instant gratification. We're always looking for the next thing we need to be doing. What's going to pop up next? What should I be doing? And especially as women too, I think that's even more common for us, is to kind of lean into that. We have that constant running to-do list in our head or in our phone or wherever, that when you have that moment to relax, it's like, but I could be doing this. And future me would be glad if I did this, but future you will also be glad if you learn to relax and honor your body in that way.
Yeah. It makes me think of that quote. This is one of my favorite quotes ever, but it's like, make sure that when you're casting out your demons, you're not accidentally getting rid of the best of yourself. So it's like, we're all in this like high stress state for a reason. Obviously, like it's served us for so many reasons, and it's a good thing for the most part, right? But it's only a good thing if it's counterbalanced, right? If we know how to slow down, if we can, right? Because then the power's back in our hands instead of just like being run by that drive to achieve or to do. So I think just remembering like it's not something to cast out. It is a gift. Like kind of we were all like just always this way, right? Like, and that's a great thing because like not everyone was wired that way. But if we don't have the control to like know when to press pause, that is when it can be dangerous. So I think, oh, I had another question and it was not on the list, but we'll skip that for now. But is there anything you guys want to add before I move on to the next thing?
I just think if we all knew how much quicker we would get from point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
if we just pulled back a little bit, it would be easier. But in our minds, we want to get from point A to point B in the quickest way possible. So that's why we are so like, what can I do? What can I do more? But just like how you said, like in a previous podcast or a previous video that we filmed, it was like, if I knew how long it was going to take me in my journey, you know, I thought it was going to take me 6 months and now it's taking me 6 years, I probably would have stopped a lot sooner. So just being patient with yourself and like pulling back will get you there quicker, even though it feels counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I remember the question that I had, and it actually goes right into the one that I had shared with you guys. So, no curveballs here, but I think there's with especially our type of people who we are as women, like it could be really misconstrued what pulling back means, right? Pulling back, it's like, what, be lazy? Like, I don't know how to, like, that's definitely not it, right? And then we can take it too far. Like, we could be all or nothing about this. And we could go from doing all the things to it's a free pass to do whatever the F I want. It is not that, right? So, what does a more intentional, recovery supportive, stress management focused approach to health, fitness, and weight loss look like for you guys or your clients right now? Just kind of some specific examples, so that way people can get like tangible insights to like, it's not a free pass. Here's what it is.
I can say for myself right now, I know I shared a little bit on the previous podcast that we did about like during my mold journey. I can tell you during my mold journey, that sounds so interesting. But during this journey, while I'm currently living in mold, we are getting it out of here soon. But I have had to kind of my recovery and learning how to pull back and figuring out that way of not going completely all or nothing with it, because it's so easy to be like, hey, well, I was, like you said before, Marissa, I was training. At one point I was training 6 days a week, pulled back to 5, and then now I'm at 3. And I've never been at 3 days lifting ever. But I've also had to base my lifting days off of my sleep, which is also odd for me because I'm very much these are the days I'm lifting. I have it programmed. And that control part of me, I could go any morning. I have the time off that I can do that any morning. But the control part of me needs to know which time I'm going and which day I'm going. But it's been a big challenge. I have to, when I wake up, I kind of evaluate, how am I feeling? Like, did I actually get good sleep last night? I look at my Oura ring. I'm like, did I get over 7 hours of sleep? And if I was up all night, if I was not sleeping well, you know, didn't get any REM sleep, whatever it may be, then that's kind of one of those situations where, hey, maybe today's a day where I'm just going to focus on getting my nutrition in, getting my steps. Maybe I'll hit the sauna, but I'm not going to go in and lift today because not getting enough sleep is already an added stressor on my body. And going in and working out when I might already be overflowing with stress from all the other external factors going on may not be the best idea today. So that's just one little example. But Julia, if you have any to add, go for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. A lot of the times, like we said, when you say like pulling back or doing less, it almost feels like giving up, right? But it's kind of, am I going all in or am I not doing enough? And just finding that balance and that, you know, pull of listening to your body, number one, you know, whether it's the emotional, the physical, you know, the mental, whatever you're like pushing against there, just realizing that, you know, pulling back doesn't mean completely stopping all of that, right? It doesn't mean that you're not working out at all. It just means swapping, you know, your workout days based on your energy, based on your sleep, or pulling back and not pushing until failure in your workouts, or walking instead of running, right? So in terms of, you know, pulling back with your training, it doesn't mean just like not going to the gym anymore. It just means maybe lessening the intensity, or doing, like for me personally, I'm doing Pilates once a week and yoga once a week. but I'm still strength training, you know, once or twice a week on top of that. So just finding that balance to like say yes, right? Do what you need to do to get to your goal, but not feeling like you have to resist against like your energy, your sleep, your hormones, and just like we want to make sure that pulling back doesn't mean like you're giving up or doing nothing.
Yeah. I'll kind of cap that off with something that's maybe from a little bit of a different lens too, is uh, for me, pulling back from 5, 6 training days to 3, like I had that, like you said, that time blocked off every day, finish work every day at this time, right? And I knew that if I went to the gym less, the answer was not fill it with work. So like, what do I do instead? And I think too, it's being able to really pour into yourself in new ways. So like I am about to try out a new hot yoga place, let you know how it is. But like something like that, like making some space for yoga, relaxation, studying for Korean, taking those lessons. Like I wouldn't have the time or space for that if I didn't create that space. And that's like a connection and fulfilling thing that's reducing my stress, giving me a pursuit that is not related to work or productivity or money or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also making intentional time for date nights, for connection, for socialization that I wasn't before. Podcast guest I had on earlier this week, we were talking about oxytocin and how it's the connection hormone and how integral it is to our insulin and our cortisol regulation. So that's a really interesting episode that's coming out after this one. But yeah, that's really important to have connection in your life, to laugh with people, to have love in your life, to have passions and pursuits. And so it's not tossing something out to always do nothing. The goal is also still creating space and like taking breaks and slowing down, but also adding in things that the hustle wouldn't allow for before. Leads to a more fulfilling life, lower stress, and then it can even have hormonal benefits, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there was 2 quotes that I used recently in a Dutch test review that I saw: chronic stress and chronic yes in, you know, yesing people and people pleasing in this client. And the first quote was, say no to something that drains you so you can say yes to something that restores you. So saying no to that 5th or 6th workout of the week so you can say yes to hanging out with your hubby or going on a date night or reading a book you really want to read. And then the second quote I said, I don't know if it was a quote or my brain in that moment, but I said, by not doing more, we are not, we are doing less, but with more intention.
Yeah.
And I sat with that for a second. I'm like, we're doing less, but the things we are doing are with huge intentions, right? So that was just 2 quotes that like really connected to what you said, is like giving yourself space and filling it with something that restores you instead of taking that space away and like filling it with something that is going to stress you out anyway.
Yeah. And I think to add on that really quickly, when you actually do things to fill your cup and take intentional time for yourself, you're not only going to show up better for yourself, but for everyone else too. Because I think so many of us that are type A perfectionists are always worried about how well we're showing up for everyone else and our performance and whatnot. And let me just say, you are going to perform better if you're filling your own cup too. So.
Absolutely. Less with more intention. I think that's a big one of like, maybe you can trick yourself, right? Like maybe you're not fully on board yet after listening to this episode, but try to trick yourself, right? It's not just cutting back on things and feeling less productive. What if you could feel more productive by doing less with more intention? And I'll be the first to say that that is absolutely my reality. I'm way more productive. I'm getting way more done because I've actually created that space to just think and breathe and process information instead of forgetting my train of thought every 5 seconds. But it's been a long day, so I know I forgot it once or twice here. But all right, anything you guys would add to maybe just like closing us out? If someone is listening and they are struggling with this concept, where's one small thing that they could do to start?
I would try to switch your mindset. Instead of what can you add, what can you remove? Because I know that so often it's it's just understanding that truly less is more. We don't have to continually be adding things to our plate, adding things to our to-do list. Where can we remove things? Can we cut back on a workout? Can we focus on maybe saying no more, doing things that are going to serve you more, adding in more laughter, things like that. So I would say it doesn't always have to be what can I do more of, maybe what can you do less of that might be adding stress to your plate.
Yeah, just looking at your day, looking at your week, and just really, really internalizing and like reflecting on what areas of your life are causing the most stress, and is that something that is productive or can be reduced in any way, and just really reflecting on, like we said, where can we pull back and where can we add. So
Yeah. And then maybe one other option, if you're feeling like, maybe give me one more thing and I'll try that, would be just adding pauses into your day. Just maybe checking in with yourself. Like, how am I doing? Every couple hours, like, how am I doing? What do I need right now? Like, just asking yourself those kinds of open-ended questions. And I think, if you're really lost with where to start, if you just start checking in with yourself throughout the day and becoming a little more mindful, you will probably notice where needs a little bit of pulling back, right? Of like maybe where you should start in your day to day, because you are noticing when you're the most wound up or when you are feeling really overloaded. So cool. Well, that's that for this Coach's Corner. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here. So, again, as always, if you are not a client of PCC's, I will put Rachel and Julia's info in the show notes. And then if you are a client, make sure to go tell your coach what your takeaways were and what you learned from this episode. So, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you back here next week.